Hello, and welcome to MarsPod, the podcast about how AI is changing society and the big picture impact it can have on your daily life. Today's episode is brought to you by MarsCrowd, your one-stop data labeling and collection company, providing real-life data to boost your machine learning models. I'm your co-host, Mark Wesley.
And I'm your co-host, Isaac Torres.
And today's guest is Faisal Galaria, CEO of Blippar, one of the forerunners in augmented reality. Faisal, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, and thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on. I'm really excited about today's episode because I got to be honest, I'm getting into augmented reality, and I think you are the perfect person to talk to us about it.
I'm really glad to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
All right. So one thing that we like to do at the beginning of every podcast is start with an icebreaker. And this doesn't have to be a super downer. You could have a fun answer for this. But do you have an AI doomsday scenario? Do you think that robots will take over the world, or do you think that that's just a bunch of hype?
Will robots take over the world?
Yeah.
Yes, through AI, sort of.
Yeah, not in my lifetime, and hopefully not in my kids' lifetime. So I'm actually really excited about technology and how it solves problems for us. And actually, I see technology helping us as opposed to some kind of doomsday scenario. If you look at what's happened just in the last 100 or so years, we've gone from having no electricity, no running water, to being able to have conversations like this beamed all over the world. And I see technology as a force for good and can help us solve many of the world's problems.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because some of our guests have had a little bit more negative responses to this question.
We like the positive responses here, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing that I want to do is I want to ask you about Blippar's history. It's a little bit interesting. I've heard that there was a start, there was a huge rise to success, and then it shut down and then started again. So can you kind of get into Blippar's history?
Of course. Blippar pioneered augmented reality back in 2011. So there was a group of very precocious, you might call them, visionaries who saw a world where digital content would be laid on top of the world around us to provide information on the things that the camera saw. And they started building this, on 2.5G, 3G networks using the very first smartphones back in 2011. So it was really early, before the ecosystem was really ready, before the mobile networks were ready, before the devices were ready, and before the rest of the partner ecosystem that you need for a new technology to take off was ready. But not the same. These guys, superb engineering talent, built the technology, and they made it work in the most, in some of the most trying of circumstances, right? So a 2.5G network, or spotty 2.5G network on a very early smartphone in some of the in places where even the internet was spotty, but they made it work. It's robust. It really works, and the company went on quickly to raise a significant amount of venture capital and built a company that was the pioneering AR company of its time. Had great success and worked with many leading brands, advertisers, and systems integrators. Unfortunately for the team in Blippar 1.0, as we call it, one of its major investors was a sovereign wealth fund which imploded back in 2018, which was in the middle of their Series E at that point. So the company had raised a significant amount, well over $100 million of venture capital, which it invested in technology and international expansion. So they had 16 offices in 9 countries. And at that point, we're doing everything from AR to spatial listening to computer vision to deep tech object recognition and visual search. But as I said, the Series E wasn't able to complete because of the collapse of the sovereign wealth fund. And as all early stage companies that are consuming capital, the company ran out of capital. So that's why they were raising VC funding and went into administration, which it did in Christmas of 2018. And luckily for us, some of the investors, and notably Candy Capital, who had previously invested $35 million in Blippar 1.0, saw the opportunity to take the company out of administration. And we phoenixed the company out of administration in 2019. But this time it's super focused. So whereas before the company did many things, including augmented reality, now we're an augmented reality platform and a studio. We have 3 offices now, and we're about 60 people, but we're very focused on creating platforms for AR content creation, and have our own studio where third parties can come and have us build their AR experiences leveraging our own platforms.
I see. That's an amazing history to this fairly young company that seemed to rise extremely quickly. I'm kind of curious, like, when everything seemed lost, what was kind of like the rallying cry for, like, this is why we need to save Blippar, like, this is why it needs to continue?
Yeah, I wasn't part of Blippar 1.0, but I was, I'd been a customer at Spotify, and I knew the technology. And when I saw what was going on with the folks at Candy Capital, we had great technology. I mean, a lot of money had gone into building the platform, the technology, and the IP that Blippar had around AR. And remember, we'd made it work in the most difficult of circumstances. So the platform is rock solid and robust. It works on any device, on even the most rudimentary of networks. So the technology and the IP was really compelling. But what made it super compelling was we had a team that had been there and done it and built this company and built the tech, served these large clients over 10 years. So it was the combination of technology and team which made it a quixotic combination, which made it, and that's compelling. Mm-hmm. And then if you think about even 2 years ago, the trajectory for AR, you could see the writing on the wall. 5G was around the corner. People were starting to talk about AR wearables like AR glasses. The AR tech stack was starting to be made natively available in iOS and Android, so that now every smartphone is an AR phone. Mm. This was happening a couple of years ago. You could start to see some of the investments that the likes of Facebook and Snap and Apple were making into both software and hardware associated with augmented reality, XR technologies. You could see that the combination of the technology that we'd invested in, that we'd inherited, the team that had built that, plus the direction of travel, made this a really exciting place to come and go. Look, now is our, we've got what we need, and now is our time. 2011 was a great time to get started, but it was it was just too early. 2019, 2020 was a time really when a lot of the big companies started waking up and investing heavily in the space.
So will you say, Faisal, that back then on 2011, I guess then the technology was not yet quite mature, like for AR to become a mainstream thing out there, right?
It wasn't so much the technology, Isaac. It was the ecosystem around it. So you need a good bearer, you need a good mobile, you need a good mobile network, and you need devices that are able to process AR and render AR. Back in 2011 on an iPhone 2 or an iPhone 3 or an Android smartphone, the battery would die after five or 10 minutes. The processor would get too hot. And in the 10 years since then, we've made fantastic leaps forward,
Yes.
as you guys know, in screen technology, processor technology, camera technology. And so it's the combination of all of these things. It's the bearer, it's the devices, it's the investment that the ecosystem is making in hardware and software. It's the fact that QR codes over the last 18 months because of COVID and lockdown have become so prevalent again. It's a combination of things. It's the ecosystem that came together that makes AR really exciting. Now, we were able to do AR 10 years ago, but technologies have to come of age. And the supporting ecosystem has to come of age at the same time.
Funny thing, what I'm also saying this is because like my first experience was like, I think it was around maybe 2014 and 2015. And I consider myself like being a very early, one of the very early ones, like testing this, at least on my circle. And then it was through a Sony Xperia, I think, I don't remember exactly which model, but it was a Sony Xperia. And I remember they had this animation that they had like a T-Rex, right? And then the T-Rex was like appearing around the room, but it was really clumsy. It was like, like you never know where, like, if it was on the table or it was on the floor, and the size was messed up and so on, right? And as you say, like the battery will like run out like real quick, right? But it was a very interesting thing. I remember like the first time I discovered that, I was like, oh wow, so I can add a T-Rex now besides my mom, when we are taking a picture out there. So it was a very interesting thing, right? But yeah, not quite accurate. Not like now that now having LiDAR sensors on the phones, right? And what you were saying, like, so it makes it like a way better experience, right?
Absolutely. Look, and if you think about, if you take even something like 5G, the bearer technology, with 100 times the bandwidth of 4G and 10 times less latency, you don't need 100 times the bandwidth to watch more Netflix or to do more Facebook, right? It's Facebook and Netflix work beautifully well on a 4G network. So what are we going to see new and interesting that on a 5G network that's not possible on a 4G network? And that's where it gets really exciting, right? When you can see 3D objects and you can interact with them in a really visceral way, which is not possible on a flat two-dimensional render. It becomes much more, I think, compelling, realistic. You can imagine, even in things like doing e-commerce, trying to buy something as simple as a pair of sneakers, or something that's for me is really important, like a pair of glasses. Now I need to see these in 3D before I press go and buy them. I want to try them on and see what they look like. And it's that kind of thing where you can see things in 3D and interact with them, that makes AR really compelling. But it's only now possible because of the speed and capability of the 5G networks.
Yeah, that was a question that I kind of wanted to ask, which is, now that the ecosystem is kind of being created that is going to support AR, you already mentioned briefly the retail experience. I was wondering, are there other areas that have not really been touched by AR previously that you can kind of envision really being improved or affected on a positive way by AR because the infrastructure is there now?
I think that's a little bit like asking, how will the internet, impact, or what verticals will the internet impact? It's going to be, disrupt. The word disruption is a word that's, I think, too often used and misused. But if you think about what's coming next with augmented reality or XR technologies, where all of a sudden there's no keyboard in front of you, the screen is built in, or it's something you interact with all the time, it's going to fundamentally shift the human computer and the human internet dynamic. So everything will be impacted. It's from education and being teleported, if you like, to the savannas of Tanzania and seeing safari and lions and tigers in safari, to being transported to the surface of the moon and being able to explore the surface of the moon. Or you could take a history lesson where you're transported back in time, and you're on the balcony with Martin Luther King at the point where he shot, and experienced what it was like to be there at the rally. So this is what we're talking about here. Really is an experiential technology that takes advantage of all of the bandwidth available and the computer vision, and puts everything together in a way that makes the internet change from the way that we experience it today, which is a flat 2D experience, into an experience that surrounds us and that we interact with.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited about this. I'm like, I want to go back to school if they roll this out. That would be super engaging. For kids or people like learning.
It's going to change, the way that our kids go to school. It's going to change the way that we do professional education.
Right.
Mm.
So in terms of learning, for example, welding, or how to fix your car, or even something like more sophisticated, like programming, or
even medicine, perhaps.
It's going to have many impacts. You can imagine how architecture and real estate will change when you can actually see a building, what it's going to look like in situ, and then walk into it and look around it, and helping people design buildings, experience buildings before they're even there.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Some of the other reasons why I'm super excited about this is AR in the field of medicine. You don't want to be as a doctor or a surgeon learning how to do medicine on someone that's you don't want to practice on someone, whereas in AR you can actually do surgery on in AR, where you can actually have a very close to real life experience, but actually you don't need to do it on a real person. So we used to talk also about some of the use cases for people like diabetic patients that need to take insulin every day, and they have to inject themselves with insulin, and they're guessing where their veins and their arteries are in their arm. And imagine if you could see where those veins or arteries are on top of your arm, you'd get it right every time. So there's going to be lots and lots of use cases, and it's going to be everything from marketing and advertising through to medicine, through to education and e-commerce, and it's the ubiquity of it, it's the platform nature of it that makes it so exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited for a lot of the applications that you just talked about. I think it's interesting to kind of project or predict kind of the growth pains that AR might have to go through, because kind of like what you said, where it's like asking, what is the how vast is the internet going to be? I remember in the .com era where it was like all of these different like websites and like web businesses and things like that were popping up, and they had to go through a period of time where they scaled back because it was like if you were about to start a website or a company based on the internet, you were going to get funded. And so I'm really interested to see like the purity of the ideas that you were talking about, kind of being the ones that stand the test of time with AR, because I think it's easy to see the impact, but it's also easy to see some of the hindrances of people who just want to make a business because it's a new technology, but they haven't really figured out the purpose. Does that make sense? What I'm asking, or what I'm saying?
I think I get what you're saying. Look, I'm a big believer that ultimately, technology that solves problems are the ones that get big and get that people use. You know, I was lucky enough to be part of Skype and Spotify, for example. You know, and they solved problems and millions of people used them. It wasn't technology, you know, built just for the sake of building
Exactly.
technology. You've got to solve a problem and make it really, really easy. And that's what we built in our technology platforms. We made a platform that makes it super easy for developers, whether you're a bedroom developer or a systems integrator, to come in and build AR content. And it's going to be really interesting, as you say, Mark, to see what people build,
Mm-hmm.
And what utility applications and services they build.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that it's a good opportunity for us to talk a little bit about how people can engage with Blippar, because what we talked about a little bit before this was basically two major ways to market with Blippar. One is through the Blippar Studio, and the other is through Blippbuilder. And so I'd like you to kind of introduce those two different products or services, so that our audience is able to understand kind of what's possible.
Great. So let me start with Blippbuilder then. Blippbuilder is our no-code GUI platform that allows anybody, you know, regardless of the experience that you've had previously, to come in and build AR experiences. And because it's a GUI platform, you can drag and drop objects. We've got a library. You can export images in, and you drag and drop. They have some tools. It works a little bit like PowerPoint or Adobe. You can use those platforms. You can use Blippbuilder,
Wow.
and it allows you to publish AR to an app really easily. On top of that, we have a new Pro platform that we're calling WEBAR SDK, that allows pro developers, so those are creatives and developers that have experience of building AR, or experienced creatives and developers, to come in and not only use a GUI no-code platform, but to use scripting on top to build very, very sophisticated AR experiences that go beyond what you can build on a no-code GUI platform. That will allow really sophisticated experiences to be built, and that's what we use in our studio to build experiences for our studio clients. And so the studio is the last pillar, if you like, of the business, which is a full service agency that goes from creative through to execution, through to providing data and analytics, and allows third parties to very quickly come in with an idea, with what they want to build, and then it leverages our experience of 10 years of development and having built over 20,000 AR experiences, and we can get AR experiences into market quickly for those clients.
Absolutely.
So two routes.
Oh yeah.
We can build it, or you can build it, and you can use our tools.
And it seems like with the new Web SDK that you guys are creating, that you can build it also as sophisticated as you want now, where there's no limit to the sophistication.
Absolutely. The Web SDK is a highly extensible product that's used by everyone from marketing and advertising agencies through to systems integrators, through to some of the biggest brands in the world to build their build AR experiences. And essentially, it's the same tool set that we use to build, and that we've used 20,000 times, as I said before. So, and we've done, some of the world's most innovative AR experiences. Not least last year with OnePlus doing an AR product launch. For the OnePlus Nord phone, which was seen by over 7 million people in total, and which we broadcast live to 627,000 people. So all of that capability is now baked into the platform and available for people to come and use, and build by downloading Blippbuilder or WEBAR SDK.
Absolutely. I'm curious, with all of the different projects that Blippar has been working on, is there a favorite of yours that you just think, oh man, that's a really interesting use case or a really interesting application of our technology?
You know what? I fall in love with the creativity that our team builds, and every week there's something new to really enjoy, and because the medium and people's understanding of AR is moving so quickly, what's really interesting is our clients grokking what's possible and coming to us with, can we do this, and can we do that? But in terms of absolute favorites, what I really enjoy is when clients come to us with a problem that hasn't been solved before. And an example of that was the one I just mentioned with OnePlus Nord. So the story there was our clients, OnePlus, which are one of the world's largest mobile phone manufacturers, had planned to do a product launch for their new Nord phone in July of last year, when, of course, the world was in lockdown. So inviting 500 journalists to Shenzhen or San Francisco simply wasn't possible. So they said to us, look, can we, rather than inviting the journalists to our exhibition and our to our platform, to our exhibition center, can we bring that exhibition experience to the journalists wherever they are, and make it and have the same thing where the CEO comes onto a stage, there's TV screens behind, there's music, people can interact, and we can launch the phone. But we'll launch the phone on a stage and bring that stage to the journalists. And they said they wanted to do this for about 500 journalists. And we thought that was really exciting, right? Because it's a real utility use case for augmented reality. It's not a face filter or some bunny ears. It's actually doing something really useful. It's bringing hundreds of users to a live product launch, which otherwise they would have to fly in and stay in hotels. And what we found during the build was the journalists who were interested in this went from 500 to thousands. And all of a sudden, news that this launch was going to be in AR got out amongst the OnePlus community and on the forums, and they asked to be able to join as well. And so all of a sudden, 500 people watching this live AR broadcast went to thousands. And on the day of the launch, actually, there was 627,000 people watching this live AR broadcast. And it's not like any other broadcast. It's not like a TV broadcast, because a TV broadcast is the same thing, is consumed in the same way by every TV viewer. In AR, it's a one-to-one experience, because the stage for you, Mark, might look completely different than the stage for you, Isaac, because you might be in your kitchen and have a massive space, and have Carl Pei appear on a massive stage in your kitchen. But Mark, you might have been on the desk, and had just a small space for the stage to appear. And so each rendition of the stage in each experience was a separate experience. It's a one-to-one experience. So it's very different from a TV broadcast, but it was went well, clearly. They were seen by hundreds of thousands of people, and then subsequently by about 7 million people. But for OnePlus, what's really exciting was the number of it created a lot of excitement around the phone. The phone itself is a 5G AR enabled phone, and it became OnePlus's biggest selling product ever. And even Amazon, which was the primary e-commerce site for the OnePlus Nord phone, sold out of phones, and Amazon India in particular said it was the most successful product launch in any vertical that it ever had on Amazon India.
Wow.
I think it's safe to say that is a drop the mic moment for Blippar in terms of the value that you're able to provide for different brands. That's amazing.
Definitely.
It was it was very cool, and we, to give you some data, we had to we pumped out 27 petabytes of information in order to sustain those 627,000 people having their live AR experiences, and people were getting involved in it was just like being there, right? You could raise your hand, you could do a thumbs up, you could interact with people around you, and so it was an immersive experience where the CEO felt like he was in the room with you, and you could experience this with hundreds of thousands of other people.
That's amazing. It's I wish that I could have participated in that launch.
That escalated quickly, 500 all the way to 600,000, right?
It was a great. It was a very cool experience, and we're seeing that kind of now that that's been done, and people are seeing that, we're seeing the same kind of demand now across other verticals. That was in mobile phones, but you can imagine doing similar kinds of things across automotive, for example, and clothing and fashion. So that the scope here is enormous, and it just provides a new medium for people to interact and see things in a 3D immersive, really compelling way, which is different from the internet. We haven't really moved on from a 2D world, which is for as long as there has been an internet, the last 25, 30 years, it's been a flat 2D internet. And that's why I think this becomes really exciting, right? If you look at some of what the kids are doing these days on Roblox and Fortnite and Minecraft, it's all a 3D experience. And we think that that's going to be, when you explode that out of the gaming environment into the way we do everything, it becomes really exciting.
Yeah, this might be a question that's impossible to answer, but it's piqued my curiosity, which is, we talked a little bit about like the technologies that have been created to create a good ecosystem for AR. Is there any other sort of technology you think that has yet to be created that would just really kind of help with the ecosystem, or do you feel like the ecosystem as it stands today is more than enough for what Blippar wants to create, or how you want to move forward?
I think we've got many of the constituents in place, but in the same way as Blippar has evolved to where it is now, I think there are some other technologies, and perhaps the most notable one is AR wearables, right? Where we've just seen Facebook announce its AR glasses or near AR glasses, and Snap launched their AR glasses. I think we're still waiting for mass market AR glasses that have the processing power, have the aesthetics, and don't create too much heat around your temples, and allow AR here to happen in front of you. I don't think we've quite got there yet, but we're not far away.
I see.
And Facebook snap up, amongst the leaders there. And I think when that happens, rather than having to hold up your phone or your tablet when AR happens right here in front of you, I think that will be, to use your phrase, Mark, a real drop the mic moment.
Okay, yeah, I think so. I think you've already experienced some drop the mic moments. Maybe there's more yet to be created. So we're looking forward to it for sure. Our podcast in general focuses a lot on AI and how AI changes society. And one of the things that I think has been really fun about this episode so far is you've explained a lot of applications about how AR can impact society and change society. But for some of our listeners who may not have a lot of technical background or knowledge, what is the maybe delineation between AR that Blippar is creating and AI? Because I know that Blippar is not positioned as like an AI company. So where is that line between AI and AR?
It's an interesting question, because actually we do use a lot of AI and computer vision in the company. So whether it's doing tracking of your fingers or your face or your body, or doing computer vision to recognize products, we use a lot of AI as technology in our tech stack, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The delineation is that we use AI in order to build our AR product. So we're not an AI company. We're a consumer and user of AI, but our purpose is to build a AR content creation platform.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's important for people, maybe the uninitiated, to know, is that like AR is a part of computer vision, that there is an object detection that has to go into it, that in order to place something in space to make it 3D, there has to be some sort of detection or recognition that's going on in order to get it there, right?
Absolutely. And you've mentioned object recognition, object detection. We use computer vision in AI, for example, in SLAM, which is simultaneous localization and mapping, which allows us to understand the physics of a user's environment, where the ceiling is, where the floor is, where the walls are, so that we can hold objects in correctly in geospatially. So if it's a car, it should appear on the floor, and when you move the camera away and come back, it remains on the floor. That's so that we use AI as part of our tech stack. We don't see AI as a novelty. It's part of the way that we build technology.
Absolutely. Yeah, I kind of want to ask you, what is your vision maybe 10 years from now or 5 years from now for Blippar? Where do you see it going? Obviously, I think what you introduced with the Web SDK is a huge step in that direction, but where do you see yourself or the company in 5 to 10 years?
That's a great question, and I wish I had a great answer for you. What I can say is that I've been very lucky to be part of some great companies like Skype and Spotify, and all of those have been really at the forefront of creating really interesting, groundbreaking technologies. But it takes time. These things don't happen quickly or overnight. And the way that I think about Blippar and AR in particular is almost like the next wave of after mobile computing. So we had desktop computing, and then we had mobile, then mobile internet. We're on the cusp of a new way of interacting with the internet, and it's going to take software and hardware as we've discussed. But if you look at how long it's taken for smartphones to become as ubiquitous as they are today, it's taken, that's something like 15 years. So I think over the next 10 to 15 years is a time scale that we need to look at for AR to become as ubiquitous as a smartphone. And it will have, over that arc of time, 10 to 15 years, it will have a similar impact, I think, to the way that we use, the way that we use mobile phones and mobile internet today. I think the impact that's had on our lives will be mirrored again, if not even more profoundly, by augmented reality. And we've seen some great innovation. I mean, imagine a world now without the iPhone, without Facebook on the app, without Uber or Deliveroo or Spotify on your smartphone. It's the impact it's had has been huge, and I think we're about to go through a whole new phase of innovation that's going to be brought about by AR, because this technology is going to allow us to interact with the internet in such a different way, in a 3D immersive way, which just hasn't been possible in a 2D world like this.
Yeah, listening to that, thinking about all of the applications for AR has me really kind of amped up and excited to kind of go explore after this episode is through. Isaac, I wanted to ask you if you had any other questions that you wanted to ask Faisal.
Well, I want to ask so much. I really wanted to ask so much. But I think I'm actually pretty clear, from me being somebody which is not I'm not a person that is really into artificial reality and VR or these kind of things, I kind of can see that Blippbuilder, it's enabling people like me probably to get involved in a way that it's easier, right? Just as you say, drag and drop and so on. And I'm kind of I'm gonna be honest, I haven't had the chance to explore further down just the website, but I haven't had the chance of exploring on the tools. But I'm kind of having some ideas in mind after what we talked, right? And
that's great.
Yeah, and I'm just I'm willing to know more, right, than what I used to know before. I guess also because Faisal, you sound very excited, right? when you explain how the future might be looking like, especially in education. I was really captivated by what you were saying. So I have a lot of questions, but I think that at the end of the day, I really want to sit down now. I want to explore a little bit more, and maybe I will have more questions later on for you guys. Yeah.
Well, and I encourage everyone to go and check out Blippbuilder, because it's a no-code platform. It's super easy. It's free to use. So the only time you pay is when you want to publish experiences to the web. So it's you can go and figure it out and see what you can build, and all of that's a free to use platform.
I think that Isaac and I are going to try Blippbuilder pretty soon, maybe within the next few days.
I see us using this on the office,
Yeah, you could try, yeah.
It's fun. It's a little bit. It's a little bit like using Adobe for the first time, right? Once you've figured it out, then you can. Some people use it for editing documents, and some people use it for photo and video manipulation. But it's that simple, right? If you can use Adobe, you can use Blippbuilder.
That's good news, because I like Adobe.
We both like it, so.
All right. Well, Faisal, I wanted to ask you also before we end this episode, for people that want to know more both about Blippar and about you, where are some places that you would direct them? Where can they go?
Well, the best place is our website, which is blippar.com. And there are some really great resources around AR, VR. Whether it's the VR AR Association, AI XR. There's a lot of places that are where you can get some really great information. There are some great communities like Capture that people can check out, where people are discussing AR, XR technologies and what works, and how to become better XR developers. So those are some of the places that I would start.
Okay, absolutely. We'd be happy to include those links in the description to the podcast.
Cool.
Okay, well, Faisal, thank you so much for taking the time to have this discussion with us. You really, I think, created a lot of intrigue, at least with me and Isaac, around AR and especially around trying out Blippbuilder. So I just want to say thank you very much for participating in this.
Not at all. And check out WebSDK as well. That's the
yes, WebSDK.
That's the pro tool.
Yeah.
And once you've got familiar with Blippbuilder, you can go wild with WebSDK as well.
There we go. That's going to be my goal, is to become worthy to be able to use WebSDK.
Look forward to see what you come up with, Mark.
All right. Thank you, Faisal. That concludes today's episode. We want to thank you for listening all the way to the end. This episode was brought to you by MarsCrowd, your one-stop data labeling and collection service provider. For more info, feel free to click the website link in the description. We look forward to you tuning in for our next episode on how AI is changing society.